Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar where we are diving into exploring the 8 pillars of grounded leadership for IT leaders. Exit Certified and Learner's Edge are so excited to come together to bring you this presentation, and I have the honor of introducing the content expert, Joanne Trotta. Joanne is managing partner and founder of Learner's Edge, which offers leadership development, specialized training, coaching, and consulting services to medium to large companies worldwide. Capitalizing on Joanne's 20 plus years of corporate experience in telecommunications and energy and services, she helps people and companies achieve success, whether it's selling more products and services, cultivating the right culture and leadership competencies, or driving improvements in employee engagement, customer satisfaction, and bottom line results. This is going to be an exciting webinar, and before we dive in, I want to cover the functionalities of this session. So during the webinar, the audience's microphones will be muted. So if you have any questions, comments, or if we're pulling for some feedback, I want to encourage you to enter your comments, questions in the chat window or the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We've dedicated 15 minutes after Joanne's presentation to go through the Q&As. So do feel free to enter those in the Q&A box whenever they come up. If you enjoy the presentation today and you're interested in learning more about IT training anywhere with our interactive virtual platform that we call IMVP, I want to invite you to visit our website and to contact us. Last but not least, the webinar is being recorded and we'll email a copy out to everyone who registered to be here today. All right, let's get started. Take it away, Joanne.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you, Matthew, for the opportunity to be here today. Before I share our overall objectives for the session, I want to share with you some rules of engagement. What you put into this, you will get out of it. So we encourage you, as Michelle just highlighted, you can use the chat feature to provide commentary and ask questions. We have a few interactive polls that we're going to use to solicit some of your input and your feedback. And we are allotting that Q&A at the end because it's your opportunity to ask some questions that we can help support you with. So I want you to take a moment, and I'm going to ask you some simple yet powerful questions because I want to get your mojo going. I want you to start to think about your own leadership effectiveness in terms of how you've been showing up for your people. So when you think back at the onset of this year and last year in terms of how you were showing up and how you were engaging with your people, whether that was virtually or whether that was in person, were you there for your team? Were you fully present? Were you self-aware, and were you mindful in your discussions and in your meetings? In addition, how effective was your verbal communication? Did you set clear expectations for your team and others so that they have a strong understanding of what's expected of them? Do you empower the people that work for you or those that you need to influence to bring their personal best? And last, do you micromanage? Because nobody likes to work for a micromanager. Or do you lead by emphasizing expectations, ownership, and accountability of deliverables so that there's no confusion over what's expected? I want you to think about those questions and reflect on them as we're navigating through our discussion this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. And I may choose to come back to them at the end of our time when we're reviewing Q&A, just to do a bit of a check-in to see where you're at. As it relates to objectives during our session for today, what I'm hoping you will walk away with is a much better understanding of how you can lead and influence others in a much more profound way, expand your thinking and perspective as it relates to what leadership and what influence means, and how to do so more authentically and with confidence. We're going to reinforce some simple but powerful best practices to deepen the depth and breadth of your influence. This is all about how do we amplify your leadership impact to achieve collective success by collaborating with others. At the end of our session, and I have a full slide dedicated to this, I'm going to ask you to make some personal commitments. I'm going to ask you what you're going to start doing, perhaps based on some of the things that we've shared here today. What are you going to stop doing because it's really not working for you? And what are you going to continue doing because it's a strength of yours and it actually helps make you more effective? So stay tuned for that. Before I unveil the 8 pillars of grounded leadership, I want you to think about your leadership why. I recall from my early days, back when I was in corporate, I never really thought long and hard about why I chose leadership, because leadership chose me. I didn't choose it, ironically. And here I sit now as a leadership coach and consultant. I really want you to think about, if you have chosen this path, what is it? What is the impact that you want to have for those that you serve? How do you add value to the teams that you work with and to the organizations that you work for? Mine is pretty simple as a leadership coach and practitioner. I encourage, and my whole purpose is to bring out the best in each and every individual and team that we work with, right? We want to bring out the best version of them so that they're effective with the people that they need to serve. But getting really clear about your why will allow you to show up not only mentally, but in the energy that you're exuding. It will allow you to show up in a much more focused, intentional, and purposeful way. Okay? This is very much about, how does my job, my role as a leader for my team, add value to the organization that I work for? I encourage you, if that isn't clear for you, I want you to get clear about that, because you will show up more intentionally and purposefully. And I'm sure we have a lot of seasoned veterans on this call that have been in leadership positions for a long time, and your why might be very clear, which is awesome. I encourage you to continue to play to your strengths and leverage that purpose and focus. Allow me to share with you our leadership mantra, and hear me loud and clear on this. Leadership is not about title, rank, or role. It's a way of being. It is very much about how you are showing up, both virtually or in person. And we fundamentally believe that you have to be grounded before you can lead others. You need to be in a good place before you can have a positive impact on the people that you serve. And you will make all the difference in performance and results based on how you're showing up. Okay. Here's a snapshot. Here's a first glimpse into what the 8 pillars look like. And don't worry, I'm going to take you through each of these in greater detail. These pillars, or this concept of grounded leadership, came to life through a combination of my 20 plus years working in the corporate space, leading large teams, okay, coupled with the past 9 years as a leadership coach, consultant, and speaker. I created this specific webinar, to help people play to their strengths so that they can have a profound impact. There are tons of leadership competencies and skills. The list is endless, but a combination of the 8 of these, when used in conjunction and parallel with one another, will really amplify and expand your leadership potential and impact. Hear me loud and clear as I make this point. Leadership is an inside-out job. It starts with you. We believe, and you've already heard me say this, I'm going to repeat it one more time. We believe you have to be grounded. You need to be in a good headspace before you can influence or lead others. How do you create followership if you're not in a good place yourself? And hence, the concept of the grounded leader was born a few years back. So I'm going to ask you to do something that might be a little unusual, and for some of you, it might not. But a very wise woman said to me after she had attended one of my workshops and she had, experienced the power of eight. She said to me, Joanne, you know what's really profound about what you've created? The concept of eight, or the power of eight, when turned on its side, represents infinity, which is about infinite, endless possibilities. The pillars themselves, when they absolutely integrate our doing with our being. So let me play this out. I'm going to ask you, and this is going to be a really quick little visualization exercise that I'm going to take you through. So I'd like you to close your eyes, and I'm going to do this myself. And what I would like you to do in your mind is envision an infinity symbol. And I want you, with your mind's eye, to trace over that infinity symbol. Go up and around each curve, over and back. Now I want you to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Now you can open your eyes. We have actually just balanced the left and right hand sides of your brain through a very small visualization exercise. Because when we operate under stress or fatigue, we're not playing to our best. We may not be operating in the best capacity. We need to be calm, we need to be focused, and we need to be present. So if you're experiencing those moments, this is a great little visualization activity that you can do to help ground yourself. All right, so now that we're feeling a little calmer and a little more at ease, I'm going to take you through the 8 pillars of grounded leadership. We're going to start with self-awareness and mindfulness. And I'm going to launch a poll to gather some feedback. So we have 4 questions that we'd like you to answer. And as I launch this poll, give me 1 second, there's a rating scale that you'll see on your screen here, where you're going to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being not at all, 2 being rarely, 3 being sometimes, 4 being often, and 5 being very often. So can everybody see that poll? Michelle, you can see that?
I'm not seeing the poll.
You're not seeing the poll? Okay, hold on. Try this again.
There we go. Now we see it.
There we go. Thank you. So give you a couple minutes to answer these 4 questions, and we're going to come back and I'm going to provide you a quick playback. So answer as honestly as possible. Okay, and let it run for about another 20 seconds. Okay, and I'm going to end the poll here, just for the sake of keeping us to time. So let me take you through, and you guys can see this as well, right? Michelle, this is visible for all the attendees to see?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. Question 1 was, how aware are you of your moods and emotions? And the thing that pleases me most here is majority of the group answered often to very often. Nobody likes to work for a leader or influencer that can't control their moods and emotions. How well do you manage your emotions, moods, and reactions? We got a bit of a mixed response on this one. 14% said rarely, 46% said sometimes, 31% said often, and 9% said very often. When confronted with situations that are displeasing to you, how well do you take the time to think clearly about them before responding or reacting? And the good news here is that 57% said often to very often, 29% said sometimes, and the rest fell into the 1 to 2 rating scale. How well do you understand the emotional makeup of others and their needs? Okay. We've got 34% that said sometimes, 34% that said often, and 20% that said very often. Okay. So here's what I'd say to that. These were 4 simple questions, and I appreciate your participation and participating in that pool. There are assessments that we can do, everything from 360s to just gathering general feedback to really assess where your level of self-awareness is at. This gives us a sort of a pulse check on where this group might be at. So allow me to share how we define self-awareness. And I'm just reading in the chat room here. I talk a lot about Daniel Goleman, and you're going to hear me introduce his model. I'm going to reference it a few times. Okay. Self-awareness has 2 components. So I'm breaking down his revised emotional intelligence model that was revamped about a decade ago because it changed over the years. As leadership changed, as the business landscape changed, so did his definition around emotional intelligence, and so did his model. There's 2 elements. There's the internal element, which is being able to manage your moods, manage yourself, self-regulate your thinking and behavior and how you're showing up. That's the internal component. The external component of self-awareness is very much about leveraging our empathy muscles, being able to read a room or a virtual call or a person that you might be engaging with, and gaining a better sense of how might they be feeling, and being able to self-regulate and adjust your behavior according to what they need, not what you think they need. In addition, he talked about the necessity to have social skills and the ability to build relationships, which I'm going to talk about in one of our upcoming pillars. That is a true definition of self-awareness. It isn't just the internal component, it's the external component. And I will tell you, majority of leaders that I engage with in the corporate space, whether it's in IT or in any other area of expertise or line of business within an organization, most people are internally self-aware. Where they fall short is on the external component. Let me explain to you why we brought self-awareness and mindfulness together under one pillar. They go hand in hand. We need to be more mindful and present in order to be more self-aware, and vice versa. We need to be more self-aware in order to be more mindful. And it all starts by really tapping into your own emotions first. How might I be feeling? What might I be thinking about this topic or this group of people or person that I might be engaging with? And it's having the ability to control your reactions. Nobody likes to work for a reactive leader. We have to be in tune and in control of our emotions. In addition to that, how do we build our self-awareness muscles and mindfulness muscles? We need to seek feedback. We need to gather feedback externally to better understand how are we perceived by others versus what we think of ourselves. And practice being present will allow you to be more self-aware. We need to create space between our thoughts. We need to take a breath versus just talking for the sense of talking. It's very easy to run on autopilot and react very suddenly. which is why we encourage, in terms of self-care and being kinder to you, meditation or active meditation is a wonderful practice to help build these muscles, okay? A few additional mindfulness tips that you can incorporate into your daily practice, and some of you might be doing this already. Pause every morning and offer gratitude. Refocus your scattered thoughts. So when you find yourself having difficulty sort of getting really clear about what thought or idea you're trying to articulate, just take a pause, refocus, and continue. You already heard me talk about self-care. It is so important now more than ever that we are taking care of ourselves. We are all zoomed out. We are all tired of this virtual world, depending on what your circumstances might be. These are not easy times, which is why self-care is so ever important to your success. And the last point that I want to make here is be kind. You read about this stuff on LinkedIn, you might be seeing it on Facebook, your friends might be sharing it. An act of kindness will go a long way, and it potentially could change somebody's day or life. It doesn't cost a dime to be kind. It just requires your time and focus. Being a grounded leader means that one has the ability to thrive, compartmentalize, and live your life, whether it's your work life or your personal life too. This also applies to your personal life, to be present in each and every moment. And Michael's saying, I wish I had learned about him much earlier. So do I, Michael. It would have saved me a lot of pain through my corporate days in the earlier part of my career. All right, I'm going to keep us moving. Pillar number 2, leveraging our intuition. Let me ask you guys a question. It's a bit of a rhetorical question. Have you ever ignored your intuition only to regret it afterwards? And I'm going to keep my eye on the chat. That's a loaded question because I can guarantee you I already know what some of the responses are going to be. We've all been there. Of course, right? Of course we have. We're like, intuitively, I knew many times, but why didn't I listen to myself? Why didn't I just have enough confidence to stand my ground? So hear me out on this. This may appear a little bit out of the norm, considering your area of expertise as IT leaders, okay? You live in a world that relies a lot more on facts and data. So hear me out on this, because I'm going to back up what I'm going to say with research. Research has shown that there's this concept of gut brain that exists with our intuition. And I don't know if anyone on the line has ever read about the gut brain, but research is showing that there are neurons and cells in our abdomen that are identical to what we have in the human brain, which is why they are saying, please do not ignore your intuition. It will help guide you make better decisions. Now, we're not advocating to ignore data and facts and information. Of course not. You want to balance that. But I will tell you, if your gut intuition is telling you that something doesn't seem right or that information might be missing, then you need to go back and ask more questions. Our Western education methodologies focus primarily on left brain skills. Unless you were taught by parents that had tuned into this, most of us were not taught how to nurture our intuition. And certainly they did not teach us that through our school systems. Here are a couple of things, and you guys might already be doing this, which is fantastic. Please continue to do so if this is the case. Here are a few things that highly intuitive people do to help amplify their performance and their decision-making abilities. They listen to their inner voice. They don't ignore their inner voice. If they're getting guided in a different direction, they'll explore it, okay? They don't just outright ignore it. They also listen to their bodies. We often get visceral feelings in our bodies that will tell us when something is right or something is wrong. So you need to tune into how you are feeling physically. Taking time for self-care and solitude, really important, because the more you do that, the more you will be able to hear your inner voice. When you are in the stress mode, that inner voice gets silenced. So the more that you can be self-aware and mindful and calm and take care of yourself, the more you'll be able to tap into your intuition. And practicing mindfulness is an amazing thing that will allow you to really tap into your intuition. I will tell you this, people that leverage their intuition often do not get stuck in negative thinking. They will mindfully let go of negative emotions and let go of those negative thinking patterns, because our brains will automatically look for the negative first. I don't know if anyone's ever heard that fact before, but it's truth. Our brains will naturally look for the negative versus the positive, unless you're doing the work to retrain your thinking, which is part of what the 8 pillars of grounded leadership is all about, as you're going to experience. Being a grounded leader means that you recognize, nurture, utilize your intuition along with the other skills that you have in order to make the best decisions and also show up as the best version of you for your people. Okay. Pillar number 3, inspiring with your message. And I have another quick poll that I'm going to launch to gather some feedback on this one. So here we go. Same rating scale, guys. And this time we have 5 questions that we'd love your feedback on. So please go ahead and engage in the poll. I look forward to playing back your insights. And just confirming, Michelle, this is active. You can see it on your end?
Yes, it is active over here.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. Terrific. More than halfway, got half participation here. All right, gonna let this run for another 10 seconds or so. Okay, we've got a great percentage rate here. So I'm gonna end our poll. And here are the results. So question 1 was, I tend to say what I think without worrying about what the other person perceives or may perceive of it. Sometimes, often 12%, very often 3%. Good news is that we got a good majority that are not at all or rarely to this question. Question number 2. I try to anticipate and predict possible causes of confusion and deal with them up front. Half of this group said very often, which is fantastic. 32% very often, and the remainder fell between questions ratings 1 and 2. When I write a memo, email, or other document, I provide all background information and detail to ensure my message is understood. And we've got a resounding 85% that said often to very often, and 15% that said sometimes, which is nice and honest. Before I communicate, I think about what the person needs to know and how to best convey it in person or over the phone, in email versus a memo, what have you. We've got 88% that have said often to very often, and 12% that said sometimes. Our last question. When engaging in conversation, I try and see other people's perspectives. And here again, we've got line share that have said often to very often, others that have said 24% that said sometimes, and 3% that said rarely. Let me be really honest with you guys, and thank you again for your participation in that. These are just quick questions to help us gauge, take the pulse on where you might be at as it relates to your effectiveness in communicating. But it does give us a line of sight, doesn't it? In terms of how self-aware are you when you're engaging with other people? Remember this old cliche. It's not about what you say. It's often about how you say it is what people will remember. It's also important to call out that being a really inspiring leader is not about being an extrovert. It is not about being high energy. It is about leveraging your own unique strengths. It's also about being honest and authentic and allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to show people who you really are. That's how we inspire others. It's through that human connection. I will tell you this, as we've all seen by what's happening, in politics and what's happening around the world and what's happening with this pandemic, this is not going to be an easy year. Okay. We've already had some interesting things that have played out. Therefore, we need to prepare ourselves by leveraging soft skills with a combination, which are really a combination of excellent communication and active listening with the 2 ears that God gave us all to create those deep human connections with others and inspire people that we work with and that work for us through our actions, through our words. As an IT leader, I can guarantee you that you excel when it comes to qualities and attributes that come from the head, like strategic thinking and technical knowledge and business acumen. You have the experience, knowledge, and insights to move your team forward without a doubt. If you want to take your leadership and the impact that you have to the next level, you need to consider, and I'm sure all of you do, or a good majority of you do, based on the results that I saw through those polls, we need to start leading with qualities that come from the heart as well. We need to balance those. Self-awareness, and I cannot highlight our foundational pillar enough, is what enables us to be more compassionate, empathetic, and that's how we inspire people with our message. It's about being an effective communicator and actively listening. All of these skills, when used in combination, will allow you to inspire others in the most meaningful way. Being a grounded leader means that you can inspire others with a clear, focused, and authentic message. Okay. Total accountability. Pillar number 4. What does it mean to be totally accountable? This is a big concept that we do not talk enough about in the leadership arenas that we all travel in. Why is it important to teams and organizations? It's everything, because that's how we get results done. That's how we move the needle. That's how we achieve results. That's how we become so successful. If people weren't accountable for what their responsibilities were, nothing would get done. So let me play this out for you. It starts with you first. You heard me say earlier, leadership is an inside out job, which means you need to be in a good place first. You need to be surrounding yourself with people that are going to help support your success. Coaches, accountability partners, mentors, inner circles, professional development groups like this. You all came today, which is awesome. All of these things help hold us accountable. And by focusing what you can control, which is you and your thinking and your behavior, also by being clear and intentional about who you are and the impact that you want to have, which is why we asked those big, bold leading questions earlier, it will allow you to show up in a really authentic and powerful way. You need to own your own development. Everyone inside of your organization, if they already don't, should have a development plan. Higher performing organizations will focus not only on team dynamics and development, but they'll focus on individual development. So if you don't already have one, that's something that you should be thinking about this year. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to do differently? What do you want to do more effectively? And then give yourself enough grace and time to be able to focus on your development. Because if you don't, that's going to show up in how you are supporting your people, and it sends a mixed message. So you need to be as invested in your own development as you are in your people's development in order to be effective. Here are a few simple tips that you can take away And I guarantee you, I know that a lot of people are probably already doing this. This is not rocket science. Leadership is not about doing big things. It's about doing small things consistently. So hear me out. To create a culture of accountability, you got to do a couple different things and do them consistently, which starts with, and you already heard me say this, and I'm going to reinforce it, set clear expectations and desired outcomes. We do not do that enough. We assume that people know what's expected of them. How could they know that? Don't assume. Assumptions and judgments often get us into trouble. Delegate proper authority, which means if you're delegating authority, thoroughly delegate authority. Don't give somebody, half authority and assume that they're going to be able to perform exceptionally well. If you send someone to represent you in a meeting, then let them represent you appropriately in the meeting. Check in, offer your support, and be there as a sounding board for your people. And we are going to talk about this concept of coaching momentarily. It is your job to connect the big picture so your people understand how their roles contribute to the bigger picture. And I'm going to talk about that as we get deeper into our webinar today. And being open and willing to both give and receive feedback. It has to be a two-way street, okay? And recognizing your people and celebrating those successes. That's how we create cultures of total accountability. Pillar number 5. And I know I'm pulling on a lot of heartstrings with everyone, and this concept of servant leadership has been around for decades. This is not new. But living in service might mean different things to different people. Authentic and inspiring leadership and influence is about serving others. It is not about you. It is about creating community and supporting one another's success. When we can become more self-aware and mindful, our selfishness decreases. It starts to become about others versus just ourselves. And I want you to think about this. Here's another self-reflection question for you to take away. What do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to say about you when you're not in the room or on the virtual call? You want them to say positive things, or do you want them to say negative things? You stepped into this position of leadership, or you were encouraged to step into this position of leadership. Are you modeling the right behaviors for others to follow? I really challenge your thinking on that. Are you modeling the right behaviors for others to follow? If the answer is no, that's okay. There's always an opportunity to improve. We cannot just be self-serving about our own career and our own success and desire to win. It is also about serving others. That's what leadership is all about. If you do not have a vested interest in helping others succeed, then perhaps leadership is not for you. And I say that tongue in cheek, but it is very true. If you have no desire or care about setting the people up that work for you successfully, then maybe being an individual contributor or influencer, without having direct line of sight and accountability to people might be a better choice for you. But the fact that you all showed up here today to participate in this webinar and this topic shows that you care and shows that you are emulating the right behaviors, or does at least desire to do so. Grounded leadership is not possible without the commitment to serving others. Being a coach, our pillar number 6. Coaching means many different things to many different people. And if I had to guess, I bet that a good majority of you that are participating here today are great coaches, okay? Leadership, and you heard me say at the beginning, is not about rank, title, or role. It's about a way of being, and coaching is a huge part of that. According to research, Harvard Business Review in particular shows that the most important competency that separates high-performing leaders from average ones is coaching. So if you want to change your game or do a better job supporting your people, then tune in, because this is a game changer that will absolutely amplify your results. Companies with well-established coaching cultures will experience higher employee engagement. That's kind of like it goes without saying. and they will experience higher revenue growth and results. Listening, active listening is what creates trustworthy, transparent relationships. Leaders that have mastered the art of listening will be highly effective. Managers who would retreat to command control, let me tell you what I want you to do, will experience some challenges. Coaching is a conversation, and to excel at a conversation, we have to be comfortable with the flow of dialogue, moving in many different directions, and we have to be more comfortable doing more listening than speaking. Spoon feeding people answers is not coaching. Being a coach, as you know, is about having the ability to ask the right questions and then being quiet and listening to what they have to say. Let people explore and come up with their own solutions. Trust me, they can. You just need to create a safe space so that they can think for themselves and come up with the ideas. Here are 3 simple things that you can do to become a better listener. First and foremost, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but trust me, research shows that this doesn't work. Stop multitasking. We cannot do 2 things well at once. Research proves it. So do one thing at a time and do it well. So tune in. When you're speaking with somebody, stop what you're doing and give them 100% of your focus. Replay. If you're like me, sometimes my mind will wander. I have a very conceptual brain, which means I love ideation. I love to create. I stop myself so that I don't get ahead of myself, so that I can be present in conversations when I'm engaging with people. And I do that by replaying the key points of what they're trying to say in my own brain. Or better yet, I'll write it down. I'll write down a couple highlights of what they've said, which takes me to point number 3. Write down your questions or your own thoughts. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard people say to me, Joanne, I interrupt because I don't want to forget my question, or I want to make sure that I get my point across. Understand this, when you interrupt somebody, you are derailing their thinking process. And it also might send the message that I actually don't respect what you have to say. Listening is a sign of respect and sends a message that I value you as a person. Research shows, and I want you to really start to observe conversations as a takeaway. Research shows that on average, it takes 7 seconds before someone will interrupt somebody else. The more self-aware and mindful and present we are, and more effective that we communicate, well, we can enhance these skills, the less interrupting we will do. But start to observe conversations and you will see what I have observed for many, many years, which is finding someone who's actually a really good listener is kind of rare. Unless it's bred from the top and these behaviors are valued inside of organizations, I observe a lot of talking at one another. So being grounded means that you know how to communicate, how to coach, and how to listen in the most effective way possible. 2 more pillars to go, and then we're going to turn it over to Q&A. So creating deep connections. I talked about this earlier, the importance of relationships, but I do not want you to underestimate the value and the importance that this will have not only on your reputation on brand and effectiveness, but it is a make or break must do as a leader in business. Yes, you might be experts in your industry. Yes, you might be IT leaders for your respective organizations. But at the end of the day, successful businesses are built on people. It is all about people. We all have a story, and how well we choose to connect to each other's stories is what allows us to create these deep, meaningful connections. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we shouldn't respect professional boundaries. You need to decide what those boundaries look like for you. But I'm going to bring back Daniel Goleman's concept of emotional intelligence. Remember what I said earlier. We have to, in order to be effective, have the ability to empathize with others and have the social skills and ability to create deep connections. In absence of those, leaders will flounder. His work shows that, his research shows that. So if you don't believe me, I encourage you, research Daniel Goleman's model on EQ. These are simple but powerful differentiators for you and for your people. Nobody likes to be treated like a number in business. We all want to be treated with respect and dignity and treated in a way that's going to help set us up for success. Grounded leadership requires us to create relationships that matter. And our last pillar, claiming the big picture. You might be thinking to yourself, well, why is strategic thinking important for me? Isn't that more so for executives? And we may have a bunch of executives on this line. We may have some frontline managers. We may have middle managers. We may have a combination of all of the above. Hear me out on this. Being strategic doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers, okay? Because especially the earlier you are in your career, you might be a little closer to the tactical things that need to get done on the front end, and that's fine. But we need to work on strengthening those muscles. That's what allows us to create emotional connectedness for our people. And I'll explain what that is in a second. But you need to be able to connect to the big picture and articulate to your team and to yourself, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my people? And I'm going to come back to this concept of emotional connectedness. When we can explain how every single person on our team contributes to the big picture, they will perform at a higher level. They will have more of an emotional connection with not only you, but the organization. That is how we foster high performing teams. So claiming that big picture starts with you. It starts with you thinking bigger picture. It starts with you thinking more strategically so that you can set the tone for the rest of your team. So I'm going to stop here, okay? Because we are at 10:02 and I do not want to eat into too much of our Q&A time. I encourage you, I want you to take this away. What are the commitments you're willing to make? What are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? And what are you going to continue doing? Because it really plays to your strengths. And here's my gift to you. Okay. This is also going to be shared in the chat or the Q&A. Thank you, Michelle. First person to sign up for my blogs via my website, my gift to you is I will offer you a confidential, private 60-minute coaching session. We can explore whatever topics you'd like to in that discussion. So Michelle, I'm going to hand it back to you. And thank you everybody for your time.
Thank you, Joanne. So many golden nuggets in that presentation. Thank you so much for going into that. The floor is open for some question and answers. You'll find the Q&A icon near the bottom of your screen. I want to invite you to post any questions you might have there. And while those questions do come in, I want to quickly talk a little bit about Exitcertified. So if you are ready to advance your career, I want to encourage you to visit exitcertified.com for all your IT training needs. We offer live, virtual, in-person, self-paced, and on-demand training at an award-winning quality and level. We offer thousands of courses. We have classes that are guaranteed to run, and we are always open to talking with each and every one of you to find your exact training needs and to design a training path specific to you. All right, we have some questions queued up. So the first one, can you repeat pillar number 8?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So in summary, pillar number 8 is about claiming the big picture. This is about having vision and the ability to think strategically. This is very much about focusing on the what before you get into the tactical details of the why and the how and the when and the who. You got to start there so that people understand what is it we're striving to achieve. It really is that big picture bottom line thinking. People need to understand that. And Tatiana, Michelle, I'll let you answer that.
Sure. So the question is, can you please show briefly the previous screen with the contact information? So I think that would be the contact information for Leaders Edge. I'm going to post that link again in the chat window. And if the question was more towards IT training, I'm going to post that in the chat window as well. So two websites there. There's leadersedgeinc.com and exitcertified.com.
Okay.
Another question, will you provide a recorded version to the participants? Absolutely. We've recorded this session. We will follow up with an email out to everyone. And I think there may be a couple blog posts released as well on this subject and on this session. So yes, you will all receive a copy of the recorded version of today's session. There was a comment left in the chat window where Joanne, they say that you are the first person that they have met who knew about emotional intelligence and Mr. Goleman, and that they are usually telling everyone about him. I've personally made a note to myself to check this out. I'm all about audiobooks right now, so I'm definitely adding that to my library. So thank you both for sharing those contacts.
Awesome. And Michael, connect with me on LinkedIn because I suspect we have a ton in common.
Here we have another question from Frank in the Q&A. So how do you feel your 8 pillars mirror teaching of Simon Sinek and John Maxwell?
Yeah. So awesome question, Frank. Not only myself, but anyone that talks about leadership and some of the big names that you mentioned there, it is no surprise that you're seeing common themes. Okay. Leadership is not a difficult concept. And you heard me say this earlier. Leadership is about doing small things consistently. Simon Sinek talks a lot about tapping into your why. I mean, logic would show if you don't understand what your why is, how can you show up intentional and focused and purposeful every day? And Simon Sinek isn't the only one that talks about your why. All of the leadership gurus out there are saying very similar messages, but we all describe it differently. So thank you for that. That was a great question.
We have another question from Mar. They are asking to share a little bit on accountability and how to hold accountability without it feeling confrontational.
Awesome question. And I have a simple tactic and approach. Instead of you telling your employees, here's what I'd like you to do, and here's what I understand next steps are going to look like, get them to play it back for you. Provided you've given them some really good context, right? Around here's this project and I want you to take it on. I want you to run with it. You're going to be my lead on this as an example. Get them to play their accountabilities back to you. Get them to kind of summarize what they see as their key deliverables, expectations, next steps. Great tactic because it'll ensure they're on the same page. It'll also give you the opportunity to go back and say, hey, that's great. I never thought of that. It'll give you the opportunity to either elaborate or provide some additional context so that they understand you want to set them up for success. There's some great questions here, Michelle.
There really are. So another one from James. Have you looked at agile methodologies for management and how those can be implemented in the public services?
So this concept of agile, like I'm a big fan of agile methodologies. To me, agile is a mindset. And I know in today we only had, a 60-minute window to explore the 8 pillars of grounded leadership. But the underlying theme, especially when we talk about pillar number 8, claiming the big picture, thinking outside of the box, being innovative and creative in our thinking, that's really where it complements and supports the whole agile methodology. Big fan of it. I have a whole change management workshop that we launch for our clients. I know it works, and I'm a true believer that not only is there a process, but there's mindset that goes along with that.
We have another recommendation for everyone here. Cheryl says, please check out How to Be Quiet in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. And they say that this entire sentence basically summarizes the book. That's another one I'm going to write down. So thank you for that.
Awesome recommendation.
Another question from Frank. How have those workshops worked out? because change is one of the most difficult things to do. And this is referring back to the public service.
Mhm. How have those workshops worked out? From the outsider looking in, relatively well, but understand this, training isn't, a lot of people view workshops or programs as an event. That's not how we support our clients. It's a journey, it's mindset. And yes, we like to drip feed ideas and concepts to help people embed them in their daily practice. But the key is arming leaders with the ability to best support their people to keep those skills alive. If I'm coming in doing work with an organization, it's really up to the leaders in the organization to keep those skills alive. We'll come in and we plant seeds and then we hand it over to our clients. We're there for support, but ultimately it's up to the leadership team to keep that alive.
Quick asterisk on there's a title correction in the book we just spoke about. It's actually Quiet, the Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. And I'm going to post that in the chat window because I see a few people are asking for that book recommendation.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. And you heard me make the comment, leadership is not about introversion or extroversion. There are some powerful, and when I say powerful, it's not about position, it's about presence, introverted leaders on this planet. It's not, has nothing to do with that.
This is just a really great comment left by Suki, and I think it can kind of just spread some good feelings to everyone here. They say, thank you, Joanne. This left them feeling a lot more confident today, and that this is the best free webinar hosted that they've seen. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
We have another question in the chat or in the Q&A. Can you talk about presence?
So are you asking about, I'm assuming the comment about presence is about leadership presence. I kicked off and I intentionally created self-awareness and mindfulness as pillar number 1. Because in order to have positive energy and presence, right? When we talk about leadership presence with people, you need to be self-aware and in the moment, not wondering or worrying about what you're going to do next. Okay, so all the skills that we're talking about when used in conjunction allow us to be very powerful in our presence. And communication is such a fundamental part of that because that's how we provide direction. That's how we engage with one another as human beings. So hopefully that's a bit hopefully that helps.
I think we have time for just one more question here, and I think that this will resonate with our young leaders. Is there a method on how to convey your message to the team as a team leader if you are one of the youngest in the team?
Okay, so this really plays on how do you convey your message to a team. If you are probably the least experienced or least tenured person on the team, how do you do that in a confident and really, profound way to help build the confidence of others? I think you need to spend a little bit of time getting really clear. You heard me talk about this time and time again, being really clear, intentional, and purposeful in our intention and our focus, which requires a little bit of pre-work, okay? Even myself, whether I'm meeting with a client, a business colleague, whether it's a networking opportunity, whatever it is, whenever I'm engaging with another person or group, I always prepare in advance. The more you prepare, the more you're going to show up confident, and your presence and your confidence will also, it will come across that, hey, yeah, I've got something I want to share. You're going to show up as organized, and your energy it'll come through in your energy in a real positive way. But we got to prepare.
Thank you so much, everyone. We're at the end of our time now. Joanne, thank you. Attendees, everyone, thank you so much for your time. If there are any more questions, I just want to repeat Joanne's offer to connect on LinkedIn. Do visit our websites, both Leaders Edge and Exitcertified, to connect with all of us. You can find myself on LinkedIn as well. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.